When someone tells you that God says you need to stop everything and listen right now, your first response should not be fear. It should be discernment. Chosen one. Real urgency does not ask you to surrender your judgment. Real urgency wakes your judgment up. So I will not tell you that something terrible happens if you leave. I will ask you to look closely at what keeps returning inside your life. There is one decision you have been circling. Maybe it concerns work, a relationship, a boundary, or something you know you need to begin. I did not name it, but your mind probably did. Hold that decision for a moment. Do not solve it yet. Just notice how quickly another question appears behind it. Perhaps you felt clear yesterday. Then doubt returned this morning. You prayed again. You searched again. You looked for another confirmation, because the first one no longer felt strong enough. For a few minutes, the new message settled you. Then uncertainty came back. Somehow, after receiving more guidance than before, you felt less guided than when you started. That pattern matters. It can make a sincere person believe that God is silent when the deeper issue may be different. You may not be missing another message. You may be struggling to hold what has already reached you. You will understand why more information can create less clarity. Before we are finished, you will also see why knowing the right thing does not always create movement. Those pieces explain why sincere people can pray, search, and still wake up mentally scattered. There is a name I use for the first part of this pattern. I call it the receiver problem. A signal can be clear while the receiver is overloaded. A direction can be simple while the mind holding it is crowded. Silence and static are not the same thing. If you confuse them, you may spend months asking for a louder answer when what you really need is a clearer place to receive it. Think about how this shows up in ordinary life. You make a decision at night, then reopen it in the morning. You write a list, then ask 3 more people. You feel peace for an hour, then search for a sign strong enough to remove all risk. None of this means your faith is weak. It means your current method may be training you to distrust your own discernment. So here is something practical you can do immediately. For the next 24 hours, choose one decision you have already prayed about and stop searching for new confirmation about it. Do not force an answer. Do not chase another message. Observe what remains when the extra input stops. If something in you recognizes this pattern, mark this moment with a simple declaration: I hear the call. Not because saying those words proves anything to God. It does not. Say them because they mean you are willing to stop chasing endless confirmation long enough to examine the condition of the receiver itself. The next question is more important than it first appears. What happens when you stop trusting the receiver? Once that trust breaks, every answer creates a new question, and every new question sends you searching again. That is where confusion becomes a loop. And that loop is the first thing we need to break. Chosen one. The receiver problem rarely begins with one dramatic moment. It usually grows through small repetitions. You feel a clear inner nudge. Then you question whether it was real. You ask for confirmation. Something seems to confirm it. You feel relief. Then a new possibility enters your mind, and the entire decision opens again. You decide to send the message, then wait another day. You feel settled about a boundary, then one guilty thought makes you reconsider everything. The common explanation is that you are indecisive, or weak, or not spiritual enough. But that explanation is too simple. The deeper issue is often that your mind has learned to treat uncertainty as proof that more information is required. That sounds reasonable at first. More information should help. More advice should make things clearer. More signs should create more confidence. But there is a point where the opposite begins to happen. Each new input gives your mind another interpretation and another future to simulate. This is why silence and static must be separated. Silence means there is no signal. Static means a signal is competing with noise. If you assume every moment of static means God has stopped guiding you, you may keep adding input to a system that is already overloaded. There is an old idea connected with discernment that helps here. The Greek sense behind discernment is about separating and distinguishing between things. The point is to distinguish signal from fear, conviction from pressure, and wisdom from impulse. Discernment is not the same as receiving endless signs. It requires enough inner quiet to notice what you are comparing. If 10 voices are speaking at once, the loudest voice can easily feel like the truest one. Fear is often loud. Clarity is often much quieter. Think about one decision you have reopened at least 3 times. Ask yourself one question. What changed after the first clear moment? Did the facts change, or did your fear increase? If the facts stayed the same but the noise increased, you may not need a new answer. You may need to protect the answer from unnecessary interference. This is disciplined attention. It refuses to make every passing emotion a new authority. Here is the reframe I want you to remember. You are not necessarily bad at hearing. You may be overloaded by what you keep adding after you hear. That difference matters because one explanation creates shame, while the other creates agency. Shame says something is wrong with you. Agency asks what can be changed around you. So test this today. When a familiar decision rises again, do not immediately ask for another sign. First ask what you already know. Then ask what is genuinely new. If nothing new has appeared, resist the urge to reopen the entire case. Let clarity remain simple long enough to become useful. If this lands, write one sentence somewhere private. I choose clarity. Just let the sentence remind you that discernment is not built by collecting infinite evidence. It is built by learning what deserves your attention and what does not. But there is a deeper trap. Once you begin using confirmation to calm anxiety, confirmation stops serving discernment and starts feeding the anxiety itself. That is the next layer. And it explains why the more signs some people receive, the less confident they become. The confirmation loop begins innocently. You feel uncertain, so you look for reassurance. Reassurance comes, and your body relaxes. For a while, you feel settled. Then, doubt returns. You search again. The second confirmation works too, but for less time. Chosen one. This is why more confirmation can sometimes produce less confidence. The problem is not the sign itself. Every time you refuse to trust a reasonable first conclusion, you quietly teach yourself that your own discernment is not enough. Then, something strange happens. You stop asking whether a direction is wise, honest, and consistent with what you already know. You start asking whether it feels certain enough. Those are different questions. Wisdom can exist with some uncertainty, but anxiety demands a level of certainty that life rarely provides. Maybe you have watched hundreds of urgent messages before. This message is not here to hand you prediction number 101. It is here to ask why the first 100 never created lasting peace. You hear something that matches what you hope. Your shoulders loosen, your chest feels lighter. You call that certainty. Then the feeling fades, and suddenly you think the answer must have faded too. So you search for the feeling again. Pause here and notice your body. Think about the decision you have been carrying. Notice your shoulders. Notice whether your chest tightens when you imagine making the choice without one more sign. Do not change anything yet. Just observe. Now ask yourself another question. What would happen if no new confirmation arrived today? Would the facts change? Would your values change? Or would you simply feel less protected while acting? That distinction can reveal whether you are seeking wisdom or relief. The confirmation loop follows a simple path. A signal appears, doubt rises. You search, relief arrives, doubt returns. Then the search begins again. Each cycle teaches you that peace must be retrieved from another message or another moment of certainty. The goal is not to reject guidance, The goal is to stop using guidance like a sedative. Confirmation can support discernment. It cannot replace discernment. If you need 10 signs before every honest decision, the 10th may reinforce the belief that you cannot move without it. This is where sincere people can become stuck for years. They are praying, listening, comparing, waiting, and checking. But preparation can become protection from action. That is why the loop can hide so well inside spiritual language. There is relief in recognizing this. The loop developed because reassurance worked for a moment. What is learned can be interrupted. The first interruption is simple. When you notice the urge to search again, wait before feeding it. Give yourself 10 quiet minutes. No new message, no new opinion, no new search. Return to what you already know. Ask whether anything meaningful has actually changed. If the answer is no, let the original clarity stand. Confidence rebuilds through repeated trust in sound judgment. If you want a sentence to carry into that practice, use this one. I receive with clarity. Let it mean you are willing to receive guidance without turning every moment of fear into a demand for new evidence. You can remain open without becoming dependent on endless confirmation. And now we reach the next trap. You may think the solution is to concentrate harder, pray harder, listen harder, and force yourself into certainty. But the mind has a paradox. Under pressure, the effort to create clarity can create more noise. That is where we are going next. Chosen one, when the confirmation loop becomes painful, most people make one understandable mistake. They try harder, they concentrate harder, they pray harder, they listen harder, they push the mind towards certainty, as if clarity can be forced into place by enough effort. But pressure changes the way you receive. The more desperately you need an answer, the more intensely you scan for one. Every feeling becomes suspicious. Every delay seems meaningful. Every small thought asks to be interpreted. What began as discernment turns into vigilance. This is the force paradox. The harder you try to manufacture certainty, the more noise you create around the very thing you want to hear. Clarity is not always loud. It does not always arrive with a rush through your body. Sometimes it is simply the quiet recognition that one step is more honest than the others. Forced certainty has a different texture. It feels urgent even when nothing has changed. It demands a complete guarantee. It keeps asking, what if? It imagines every possible outcome before allowing one simple action. And because no human decision comes with perfect safety, the mind stays trapped. Grounded clarity is quieter. It can admit that risk still exists. It can say, I do not know everything, but I know enough for the next step. It can hold uncertainty without turning uncertainty into a command to stop. Notice the contrast. Forced certainty asks for the whole map. Grounded clarity asks for the next faithful step. Forced certainty tries to eliminate fear before moving. Grounded clarity knows fear may come along, but fear does not get to make the final decision. If this pattern feels familiar, do not attack yourself for it. Your mind may have learned that constant scanning keeps you safe. The problem is that a system built to detect danger can begin treating every unknown as danger, including opportunities that require courage. So use one practical test. When you feel the urge to search for another answer, ask what new fact has appeared. If no new fact has appeared, then ask what emotion has appeared. That small separation can keep fear from disguising itself as fresh information. I receive with clarity. Let those words mean something precise. They mean you are willing to listen without squeezing the answer until it promises absolute safety. They mean you can let wisdom remain simple. You do not need to make a quiet answer dramatic before you trust it. You do not need emotional thunder to validate a step that already agrees with truth, integrity, and what you know. And there is another layer I want you to hold now. The receiver idea is not only useful as a spiritual metaphor, Research into how the human brain coordinates different kinds of processing has raised an interesting practical question about what happens when the mind becomes fragmented, overloaded, and poorly synchronized. We are going to return to that later. Not because science can prove what God is doing, it cannot, but because understanding the condition of the mind may help explain why spiritual clarity can feel harder to hold during seasons of cognitive overload. For now, keep this question open. What if some of what you have been calling spiritual fog is being intensified by the condition of the very mind trying to interpret the signal? Chosen one, there comes a point when waiting stops being preparation and starts becoming protection. That is difficult to admit, especially when the waiting is wrapped in prayer, patience, and the desire to make the right choice. But a sacred word can still be used to hide an ordinary fear. You may say that you are waiting on God. Sometimes that is true, but sometimes you are waiting for a level of certainty that no decision can provide. You want the risk removed. You want the outcome guaranteed. You want the next step to feel so obvious that courage is no longer required. That is where another warning appears. The danger is not always moving too soon. Sometimes the danger is remaining in preparation so long that preparation becomes your identity. You keep gathering information because gathering feels safer than choosing. So use 3 questions. First, what do I already know? Second, what am I genuinely uncertain about? Third, what is the smallest reversible action available to me right now? These questions do not promise a perfect outcome. They turn vague spiritual pressure into something you can actually examine. The first question protects what is already clear. The second prevents fear from pretending that everything is uncertain. The third returns you to movement. A phone call can be made. An email can be drafted. A boundary can be stated. A meeting can be requested. One small step can reveal information that another week of thinking cannot. Picture a different version of your next morning. You wake up without immediately searching for another message. Your mind is not trying to solve the entire year before breakfast. One decision still carries uncertainty, but one next action is clear. You do that action, then let reality answer the questions that only action can answer. That is a different kind of peace. It is not the peace of knowing everything. It is the peace of no longer demanding that you know everything before you move. Write your next action in 1 sentence. Keep it concrete. If the sentence cannot be acted on, it is still an idea. Now I want to return to something I asked you to hold earlier. I mentioned research into the way the human brain coordinates different kinds of processing. I did not explain it then because a solution means very little until you understand the shape of the problem it is meant to address. You now understand the shape. The receiver can become crowded. Confirmation can become a loop. Pressure can make clarity harder to hold. And even when you recognize all of that, one final problem remains. Why does understanding the pattern still not create movement? Why can you hear all of this, agree with it, and wake up tomorrow inside the same habits? Because insight is not the final step. The missing piece is the condition in which insight becomes usable. Knowing what is true is one thing. Holding that truth under pressure is another. Acting on it is another still. That gap is what I call the clarity threshold. We are about to cross it carefully, and when we do, the research I mentioned earlier will finally have a place to land, not as a replacement for faith, not as proof of a divine claim, as one practical lens for understanding what may support a clearer receiver. Chosen one, this is the clarity threshold. You can understand a pattern and still remain inside it. You can know what needs to change and still postpone the change. Insight becomes useful only when the mind can hold it long enough to decide, and when you are willing to act before perfect certainty arrives. The why is simple. You may not be lacking another revelation. You may be overloaded, mentally scattered, or trained to reopen decisions whenever fear appears. The what is simple too. Reduce unnecessary noise, protect what is already clear, and create conditions that make focused action easier. And the WHO matters most. You are not someone who cannot hear. You are someone learning to discern without surrendering your agency. The clarity you have received is real, but clarity that never becomes movement eventually turns back into doubt. Now we can close the research loop. Dr. Roger Sperry received the Nobel Prize in 1981 for research that helped reveal how the two hemispheres specialize in different kinds of processing. That research did not prove a spiritual claim, and it did not prove the product I am about to describe, but it helped create a foundation for asking how coordinated brain function shapes human experience. The creators of one audio tool built their approach around supporting hemisphere synchronization and what they call whole brain activation. A woman from California reported years of mental fog and emotional disconnection. After using the resource, she described feeling clearer and more present. A man from Texas reported a different struggle with dull thinking and indecision. After using the same resource, he described stronger clarity. These are personal reports, not guaranteed outcomes. The resource is called the Genius Switch. It is a digital audio sequence designed by a team led by neurologist Dr. Daniel Barone. According to its creators, it uses neural sync technology and is designed to support coordination between the two hemispheres. The routine is simple. Use headphones, close your eyes, relax, and listen for 8 minutes each day. It is not a replacement for prayer, reflection, medical care, or sound decision-making. This is not for everyone. It is for the chosen one who recognizes the receiver problem and wants the tool alongside prayer, reflection, and practical action. It cannot make your decisions or guarantee a breakthrough. According to the product information, specialized options, such as in-person neurofeedback, can cost hundreds of dollars per session, while home equipment can cost thousands. This audio was listed at $49, with the current page offer described as $39. The offer also includes 4 digital bonuses: a guided visualization, a grocery shopping guide, a classic manifestation book, and a printable 5 Habits infographic. The purchase is also described as including lifetime access and a money-back guarantee. If you have tried generic soundtracks before and felt disappointed, the creators position this differently. They describe it as a targeted auditory sequence built around hemisphere synchronization rather than a simple mood-changing sound. The price may not remain the same indefinitely, but urgency should never replace discernment. Do not buy because you feel spiritually threatened. Consider it only if the problem matches what you recognize in yourself. The creators state that the verified version is distributed through their official page. Similar names or unrelated tracks should not automatically be assumed to use the same method. If this resource resonates with you, the description and pinned comment point to the page where you can read the details before deciding. Remember what matters most. The tool is not the promise. The tool is not the source. God is not replaced by a product, and obedience is not outsourced to an audio track. The question remains yours. Once your mind becomes clearer, what will you do with the clarity? The threshold is not crossed when you understand. It is crossed when understanding becomes a decision, and a decision becomes a faithful next step. Chosen one. The tool does not replace God. It does not replace prayer. It does not replace obedience. And it cannot make a difficult decision for you. A tool can support clarity, but clarity still has to be carried by a person willing to live with integrity when the next step becomes visible. That distinction protects everything we have built so far. If any spiritual message tells you that buying something proves your faith, walk away. Faith is not a transaction. A product cannot purchase a promise. A resource may support a condition, but it cannot command God, guarantee an outcome, or remove your responsibility. This matters because the receiver problem is not solved by replacing one dependency with another. You do not leave endless confirmation behind, only to become dependent on a new object. The goal is greater agency. The goal is a mind clear enough to recognize what is true, test what is wise, and move when movement becomes appropriate. Imagine what that could look like in ordinary life. You wake up, and the first hour is not consumed by mental argument. You know which email needs to be sent. You know which conversation needs to happen. You know which task matters before 10 smaller distractions begin asking for your attention. Maybe the change is relational. You stop rehearsing the same argument and speak honestly. Maybe it is professional. You submit the application you have edited 17 times. Maybe it is creative. You finally write the first page, instead of waiting for the entire project to feel certain. The important shift is not that every answer suddenly becomes obvious. It is that confusion no longer becomes your identity. You stop saying that you are someone who cannot hear clearly. You begin saying that you are someone who can slow down, test what you sense, and respond with wisdom. There is another resistance worth naming. Part of you may still think all of this sounds too simple. You may believe that if the answer were real, it would feel more dramatic. But some of the most important decisions in life arrive without thunder. They arrive as a quiet sentence that remains sensible after the emotion settles. That is why clarity must be tested. Excitement can feel clear for 10 minutes. Fear can feel certain for 10 minutes. Pressure can feel prophetic for 10 minutes. The question is, what remains after your body settles and the emotional volume comes down? Before we close this message, I want to give you one final test for that. It will help you separate grounded clarity from emotional intensity. And then I want to speak directly to the part of you that has mistaken confusion for identity. For now, remember this: you are not required to know the whole future before taking one honest step. You are not required to eliminate fear before acting with wisdom. And you are not required to make a product, a message, or another person responsible for what only discernment can decide. The tool is not the source. The source of your responsibility remains deeper. Your values matter. Your faith matters. Your judgment matters. Your willingness to act matters. A clearer receiver can help, but the life built from that clarity still belongs to the choices you make next. Chosen one, there is a simple way to test whether what you feel is grounded clarity or temporary emotional intensity. You do not need another prediction for this. You need 4 questions, 1 quiet moment, and enough honesty to let the answer remain ordinary. The first test is specificity. Can you name the next action in 1 sentence? Not the entire future, not your destiny, just the next action. If you cannot say what the step actually is, you may still be holding an idea instead of a decision. The second test is integrity. Does the step agree with your values? Does it require deception, manipulation, or betrayal of what you know is right? If clarity asks you to abandon integrity, it is not clarity you should trust. The third test is reality. Can the step be tested without demanding supernatural certainty? You can send an email. You can request a meeting. You can ask a direct question. You can create a boundary. Reality can answer many questions that endless thinking cannot. The fourth test is persistence. Does the decision still make sense after the emotional intensity settles? Give it time to breathe. A grounded step does not need panic to survive. It can remain coherent tomorrow morning, even when the rush is gone. Now, soften your gaze for a moment. If it feels comfortable, close your eyes. Picture 1 door in front of you. Do not imagine 10 doors. Do not imagine the entire hallway. Let there be only 1 door, and let that door represent the next honest action already waiting in your life. Notice what your mind tries to do. It may rush ahead. It may ask what happens after the door. It may create 5 possible failures. Let those thoughts pass without following them. Return to the one door. Place a hand over your chest if that feels natural. Take one slow breath. Ask yourself what you already know. Then ask what one action would honor that knowledge without requiring you to know everything that comes next. Hold the answer gently. You are not trying to force certainty. You are letting clarity become specific. The entire map is not required. The next step is enough. When you open your eyes, write that action in one sentence, then give it the 24-hour clarity test. Specific, honest, testable, persistent. If it survives those 4 questions, you have something much more useful than emotional excitement. And if the resource I described earlier matches the receiver problem you recognized in yourself, the description and pinned comment contain the page where you can examine it. Read the details. Use your own judgment. If it is not right for you, let it go without fear. If it is something you decide to explore, let the decision come from clarity, not pressure. The point of this entire message is not to replace one urgency with another. It is to help you act from a mind that is less crowded by noise. Say this quietly if you want to mark the shift. I move with clarity. Not because the future is guaranteed, not because fear disappeared, because you have stopped demanding the whole map before honoring the light already available for the next step. There is only one thing left now. We need to release the identity that grew around all this confusion. You were never meant to become the person who waits forever for permission to live. Chosen one, return to the beginning for a moment. You came here because the word urgent caught your attention. But the deepest urgency was never about panic. It was about noticing the pattern before another season disappeared inside endless searching. You have seen the receiver problem. You have seen the confirmation loop. You have seen the force paradox. And you have crossed the clarity threshold. Each one pointed toward the same truth. More information does not always create more clarity. Maybe you were never abandoned. Maybe you were trying to create certainty by gathering more signals than your mind could hold. Maybe confusion became so familiar that you began calling it your personality. You started believing that other people could discern, but you could not. Release that identity now. Release the need for endless confirmation. Release the fear that one imperfect decision ruins everything. Release the pressure to understand the entire future before taking one faithful step. Release the shame you attach to confusion. Confusion is a state. It is not your name. Fear is an experience. It is not your authority. Uncertainty is part of being human. It is not proof that you have been forgotten. If the invitation of this moment could be placed into one sentence, perhaps it would sound like this. Stop asking for the entire map when you already have enough light for the next step. That step may look small. It may be one conversation, one application, one boundary, one page, one decision you stop reopening every morning. Small does not mean meaningless. A clear step can change the direction of an entire season because movement reveals what waiting can never reveal. So let these words become your closing declaration. I do not need fear to guide me. I do not need endless signs to move. I can discern. I can test. I can choose. I can act. I am not abandoned. I am not powerless. I am not required to know everything before I begin. I am willing to walk with the clarity I have while remaining open to wisdom along the way. I walk in clarity. Let that be your declaration today. Not as a performance, not as a promise that every decision will be easy. Let it mean that you refuse to make panic your compass any longer. You can pray without chasing. You can listen without forcing. You can wait without hiding. And when the next honest step becomes clear, you can move without demanding that every uncertainty disappear first. Chosen one, God does not need your panic. Your calling does not require constant fear. The future does not need to be fully visible before your feet can move. What you need is enough clarity for the ground directly in front of you. Take one breath. Remember the decision that entered your mind near the beginning. Look at it again now. Do not ask for 10 more signs. Ask what you already know, what remains genuinely uncertain, and what one faithful action is available today. Then take that step when you are ready. Let reality meet you there. Let wisdom refine you there. Let your discernment become stronger through use, instead of weaker through endless hesitation. You do not need the whole map tonight. You need enough clarity to take the step already waiting in front of you. Amen. It is sealed.